Hey, welcome back to another episode of Read This, a weekly spoiler-free comic book roundup of the best books from the previous week. Let's dive right into it with Image Comics first this week, and Do A Powerbomb number 3, written by Daniel Warren Johnson, with colors by Mike Spicer, and letters by Russ Wooten. If you've seen my show before, you'll know I really love this book, and every issue has been a total delight. Third issue is no different. We found out a major revelation in issue 2, and having found out who Cobra-san is adds so much depth and another layer to everything that's happening in this issue. The premise of this story is already super crazy. There's an afterlife tournament in which the organizer is offering the chance to bring somebody back from the dead as a prize. And a pro wrestler's daughter, whose mother was killed in the ring, decides to enter the championship in order to win back her mother's life. Her partner is the man who killed her mother in the ring, and she accepts a partnership with him on her part because he's racked with guilt about it and he has never gotten over it. But last issue we found out that he was in fact her father. With all that going on in the background, now we're at the tournament, and the other teams that they need to fight against are bonkers. And it doesn't take long before the tournament starts and we get some super dynamic fights. They're drawn so well, they flow so perfectly that it felt like I was watching animation. I could easily see how the action was flowing from one move into the next move, and it was so exciting. And while all that was going on, we have Cobra-san refusing to tag in Lana, his partner, because it's his daughter. She doesn't know that the man in the mask is her father. So on top of the fights that are going on, there's this whole other layer of emotional stuff on the top that's affecting what's going on in the ring. It's so well done, and it's so goofy and crazy, but somehow still works as a drama really well. It's an insane balancing act that Daniel Warren Johnson's got going on, and every beat is hitting and landing just perfectly. This is so much fun, it's so dramatic, and it's so exciting. I think everybody should be reading this book. It's amazing, whether you like wrestling or not. Moving on to Vault Comics now with Heart Eyes number 1, written by Dennis Hopeless, with art by Victor Ibanez, colors by Addison Duke, and letters by Simon Boland. This one is about a future where monsters have ravaged the earth. In the time period after that happens, there are pockets of humans hiding away and surviving. But our main character, Lupe, is a girl that wanders the streets and she's perfectly fine. So she's wandering around one day and she gets rescued by one of these survivors and taken back to their camp. And since she's from the outside, they just don't trust her instinctively. They think that this newcomer is going to cause something bad to happen. And after she shows up, bad things do start to happen, but it's not for the reason that they expect. The young man that tried to save her and Lupe sneak out one night to go and see what life is like outside the camp. And they have a nice time, they relax, and they talk under the stars, and they make it back to their camp with no trouble. So I don't want to give away what's going on, but what's ingenious about this book is the thing that the survivors fear is happening, but it's not for the reason that they assume that it's happening. So we, the readers, know the real reason, but they don't. So we're going to watch this play out and see how it goes from here. The main character, Lupe, is so likable. She's very free and very charming. And this is a rare case of a comic book where I really like the art style, but the colors don't quite work for me. Usually I get a real kick when colors and artwork complement each other and they work really well. In this one, I really love the style of the art, but I think the colors are a little bit dull for me. I'd like it to be a little bit brighter. That's just my personal preference though. But the style is gorgeous, the lines are gorgeous, and the few times that monsters do show up in this book, they're hideous, they're really horrible. So what's been set up is an interesting drama with a little bit of romance and kind of survival horror too. And with such a lovely main character, I'm really intrigued to see what happens, and I hope everything works out for her because it looks like it might not go so well for her. And sticking with Vault, we've got Barbaric Extra Grind number 1, written by Michael Moresi, with art by Nathan Gooden, colors by Addison Duke, and letters by Jim Campbell. So this is kind of the second arc of Barbaric, and the first arc was amazing. I loved it so much, it's so much fun. And that continues in this next arc. We've got Owen, our main character, who is a barbarian. He's been cursed by witches to only kill people who deserve to be killed. And his axe, which has a face on it and talks to him, is the one that's the arbiter of that, decides who he is allowed to kill and who he isn't allowed to kill. In this issue, we meet an old friend of his who has been in the thrall of a vampire, and Owen saves him, but after he saves him, he gets news from his friend that an old warlord that they knew has come back. So they decide that they need to go take him out. And on their way to do that, they run into some trouble. There's ultra-violence, there's swearing, there's Axe being a maniac, there's Owen being a barbarian who's cursed only to do the just and right thing, which drives him crazy. And his friend from the first arc, the witch, who can make weapons appear from her skin, is with him on his journey. The premise is set up, we know where they're going and what they're doing, and they set off on their way. It's just a super good time. Barbaric is a really fun book to read. Axe, the axe with the face, is such a fun companion for Owen, because while Owen is bloodthirsty and wants to kill anything he can, Axe drinks that blood and gets drunk, so he also wants him to kill everything that he can see. But it can only be somebody who deserves it, and that drives Owen insane. The first arc of Barbaric was super well received because it's so much fun, and the second arc is off to a good start too. Definitely one to check out if you want something that's violent, bloody, and a lot of fun. Moving on to AWA Upshot now, with NewThink number 3, written by Greg Hurwitz, illustrated by Karen Grant, and letters by World Design. NewThink is an anthology series. The first issue took on technology, and the second was kind of a fantasy, but it was an allegory for current political climate. And now number 3 goes back to technology again. The issue starts off talking about a vampire or a symbiote creature that wants to suck all of your energy. And for the first few pages, I wasn't quite sure what it was talking about, but when it hits, the entire issue is a bleak monologue from the point of view of something or someone that all of us know very well. And as you read through the issue, the things that it's talking about are familiar to everybody. This is like a cynical take of something that's a situation that's already happening to almost everyone, but it's looking at it from another perspective. I guess that's why the title is NewThink. It's thinking about something in a new way, and it comes off so creepy and sinister. And while I'm not sure I necessarily agree with everything that the issue is trying to say, the way that it goes about it is cool, and it just puts like a horrific spin on an everyday situation. So while I can see this series bugging some people because what it's basically saying is technology is bad, my take on it and the reason that I am enjoying it is because it's looking at technology from another point of view, as if the technology was sentient and knowingly doing to humans what it's been doing. Maybe my description isn't super clear, but if you read the issue, you'll see what I'm talking about. So a really dark, cynical take on something very familiar, which I enjoyed. And I just wanted to shout out the cover of this is gorgeous. It's Marilyn Monroe, but there's kind of a digital effect coming off from her. It looks really nice. Moving on to IDW and Star Trek, The Mirror War number 8, written by Scott and David Tipton, with art by Gavin Smith and colors by Charlie Critchoff. Letters are by Neo Wiyatake. As I said last month, this series is just such a joy for me. I really enjoy reading this one. Even though it shows characters that are like old friends to me being bad, it's just nice to see them doing anything again, and it's been great from start to finish. Last issue, Picard's ego was kind of getting the better of him, and he changed his plan for the war in the middle of the battle. That's caused some of the crew members to feel distrustful and kind of angry at him, and that boils over this issue. Last time I was worried that Picard's egomania was gonna cause trouble for everybody, and maybe cause them to lose everything. That is not what happens. It goes in a completely different direction, which I didn't see coming and was also brilliant. There's a big cliffhanger ending, and then there's a to be continued, which was such a tease. I really hope there's more of this. You could read this not being a fan of Star Trek because it makes sense. The story is self-contained and you don't need any knowledge of Star Trek to read it, but I just feel like there's not going to be many people who don't know Star Trek and decide to read this, which is a shame because it's so good, but that might be biased talking. Staying with IDW, we've got Dark Spaces Wildfire number 2, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Hayden Sherman, colors by Rhonda Pattinson, and letters by World Design. The first issue of this set up a really intriguing story, and the second delivers. In short, it's a series about 4 female firefighters who are in the prison system. I think they get time off their sentences or they earn money from fighting wildfires in America. And one of them took the fall for her company doing something bad. So she has all this inside information about one of the company owners who has a house near where this wildfire they're about to fight is going to start. So she's convinced her teammates to go, in the space of an hour, break into this house, steal a bunch of cryptocurrency, and get out. At the beginning of the first issue, we see the outcome. So we already know what's going to happen to these people. But the crux of the series is following how they got to that point. So in this issue, they make it to the house and they start to do what they came there to do. But they have to wait around a bit. And that looks like what's going to be the problem. That looks like it's going to be their downfall. But actually, at the very end, there's a giant swerve, and I don't know what's going to happen next. What I do know is that the artwork and the colors in this are awesome, and that Hayden Sherman's experimental panels and page layouts are always so cool to see. There's one in particular in this I really loved where it was all on diagonals, and it has each character facing an opposite way. So So there's one character laying this way and another laying the opposite way, and there's all 4 of them on the page. It's gorgeous. I really like the bait and switch too, where they set it up to seem like, oh, this is where everything went wrong, but actually there's a big twist at the end. And again, knowing how these characters end up and then seeing that twist, I want to know how we get from A to B. So I don't know if it's just me and my predilection for colors and artwork that meld together really well, but this is one of my favorite releases every month. Let's jump over to Marvel now with Hulk number 8. That's Hulk vs. Thor, Banner of War number 5, written by Donny Cates, with art by Martin Coccolo, colors by Matt Wilson, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. As much as I like emotional comics and I enjoy more hearing about characters' motivations and feelings and relationships to each other than I do seeing fights, I've been loving Hulk vs. Thor. I'm a big fan of giant monsters and big impactful fights, and this has been one long, big, impactful fight. Martin Coccolo's art is some of my favorite I've seen, I think, in any Marvel book. The way that he draws Hulk and Thor just looks so cool. I can't really quantify it any further than that, just that they look so cool. Their faces look amazing. If you haven't been reading this, basically Hulk and Thor have been fighting. That's all you need to know, really. To me, this feels like how fights go in manga, where they're longer and they're drawn out because we're seeing each moment as it happens. It's not one splash page of everybody in a cool pose. It's one fight being stretched out over multiple issues, with us being given time to see everything that goes on. It's been so exciting. Each issue has had 1 or 2 big gut punch moments, but in this issue, the big impactful moment isn't from the fight, it's from something that Thor does later on. So we get the ending of the fight, which is kind of anticlimactic, but that big emotional moment from Thor kind of balances out the issue, and it's still great to read. And Cates has cleverly used it to set up what's going to happen next in Thor and what's going to happen next in Hulk. The stories kind of crossed over, and then one thing from Hulk's story has gone into Thor's story, and one thing from Thor's story has gone into Hulk's story, and they're cleverly intermixed now. Again. So while it's kind of a bummer that this event is over because I was enjoying it so much, I'm still looking forward to seeing what happens next for each of these characters. Sticking with Marvel, we've got Strange number 5, written by Jed MacKay, with pencils by Marcelo Ferreira, inks by Roberto Poggi, colors by Java Tartaglia, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. I've been loving this series since it started, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to talk about it. Quite a while ago now, over at Marvel, Doctor Strange died, and there are a lot of interesting spin-offs from that, where the magical barrier protecting Earth had been let down, and all kinds of magical beings had been showing up on Earth. Of course, with Doctor Strange dead, there was no one left to be the Sorcerer Supreme, and that's where his wife Clea stepped in. So prior to this series, Clea was a character I didn't know and had never really heard of, but the way that Jed MacKay writes her as this no-nonsense, complete badass is so much fun. She takes no guff from anybody. There's an issue earlier in this series where Doctor Doom shows up at her house and she's just not having any of his rubbish. She's so gutsy, she's so kind of saucy, I love her. So what Clea's been doing is trying to find a way to bring Doctor Strange back from death. And this issue, she figures that a good person to ask about that would be Moon Knight. So a lot of this issue is Clea hanging out with Moon Knight and trying to get information from him. But Moon Knight basically tells her, I can't help you. There is one person who might be able to help Clea, and we get a reveal at the end of this issue who that person is. While I'd mostly recommend this to people who are interested in the death of Doctor Strange and all the things that come from that, if you want to read a Marvel comic about a strong female superhero who's really fun, she's really cutting in what she says, she's very witty, and she's strong. She's strong. I would highly recommend this one. And the last one from Marvel this week, X-Men Unlimited X-Men Green, written by Jerry Duggan, with art by Emilio Laiso, Rachelle Rosenberg on colors, and VC's Joe Sabino on letters. This was a giant surprise because at the moment the X-Men are involved in Axe Judgment Day, and that's Avengers, X-Men, and Eternals all involved in a big incident. This is kind of off to the side of that. This is about Nature Girl, who is one of Wolverine's old students, and she has had enough of human beings mistreating the planet and killing animals, and she decides that she's going to go and do something about it. The things that she decides to do go against Krakoan laws, and so Wolverine needs to go and hunt her down. But she's not an easy one to catch, especially when she makes friends with certain types of animals. There even comes a point where Wolverine thinks to himself, maybe it's better that I just send her to the resurrection queue than try and hunt her down without hurting her. That's how dangerous she's becoming. So we follow her going around trying to take out some humans who are doing bad things to the environment. So first she joins a protest and then tries to take on an oil company. But when she gets there, she finds out that they have some muscle of their own. This came out of nowhere and was a total surprise to me. I'd never heard of Nature Girl before, but I really like her. She isn't doing the nicest things. At the very beginning of the book, I kind of wondered what her plan was, and it kind of went really off the rails. There's a point in this book where she wakes up from a dream and her hair is starting to fall out and her skin is starting to turn black, like She says she's evolving, something is happening to her, and she's getting angrier and angrier. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen to her and what she's going to do next. In the middle of Acts, I didn't expect this at all, but it was a really nice surprise. And lastly, hopping over to DC with Nightwing, number 95, written by Tom Taylor, with art by Bruno Redondo, but with some pages inked by Caio Felipe and Adriano Lucas on colors. Letters are by Wes Abbott. This issue, Nightwing decides it's time to take on Blockbuster. But he's not going to be able to do it alone. He needs some help. And plenty of help shows up. It's so nice to see how many characters have Nightwing's back. Blockbuster is running like a criminal empire. He has several operations going on in one night, and they decide they're going to interfere with every single one of them. So different characters that Nightwing is friendly with help stop various criminal activities that are being organized by Blockbuster. And Nightwing decides he's going to be the one to go and take on the guy himself. As you might expect, that doesn't go super well for him, and we're left on kind of a cliffhanger. As I've said before, Tom Taylor's Nightwing and Superman Son of Kal-El are just about superheroes trying to do good and having nice, warm, friendly relationships with people. And that's what made this issue so much fun, is seeing how many people show up just because Nightwing asks for help. And again, it's about a character trying to do good for their community, and his enthusiasm for that is so infectious that now other heroes are joining him too. But he's going to need that help, judging by the end of the issue. Bruno Redondo's artwork is gorgeous as always, and Adriano Lucas's colors set it off so nicely. The whole thing looks really sleek and slick. It's a cool looking book, and every issue is full of heart. It's a series that I really recommend everybody read. And that's it. Those are the best books I read this week. If you enjoyed this video, please take a look around the rest of the channel for some more spoiler-free review roundups. Give me a follow at Boxes and Bubbles on Twitter to hear about all the comic books that I read every week in real time as I read them, and to hear about the ones that didn't make it into this video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it around to your friends. And if you really fancy helping me out, give me a sub too. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Bye bye!